Hey everyone! So we spent countless hours enjoying the virtual skies, flying from A to B in a range of aircraft and exploring the landscape below us. For enthusiasts, it's all about creating the most realistic feeling possible, whereas for others, it can just be about having fun or just building up some knowledge. But regardless of your use, it is that simulation of flight that brings us all together. But without the dedication, passion and sheer determination of our development community, we just simply wouldn't have the virtual world we have today. So to celebrate, we're going to spend some time visiting a variety of different developers, speaking to them about their challenges and how they deliver on community feedback and more. All of this is in search of trying to find out what inspires them, how they continue to stay motivated, and just how hard is it for them to put the products that we all know and love into the simulators we all use today. Introducing Developer Month. So today I'm heading off to New York to visit the co-founder and CEO of Infinite Flight, Laura. Her story of how she went from making simple physics projects to co-founding one of the most popular flight simulation mobile apps is incredible. So today, whilst we're at Millionaire, we're going to spend some time talking about the challenges involved with working on a mobile platform, how Infinite Flight sees themselves compared to the other simulators that we're all used to, and how she got into real aviation. Plus, she does take me around in an aircraft and she shows me parts of the city, which was pretty cool. Hi everyone, Callum here from fsel.it and I'm joined by Laura from Infinite Flight, and welcome to another Developer Month video. So today we're going to be talking all about how Laura got to where she is today, how Infinite Flight is performing and how they interact with the community, and hopefully even give you guys some tips about how you could get involved in kind of the whole development process and maybe even join the team as well. So thank you very much for spending the time with us today. We are at the fantastic Millionaire hangar here. There's a whole host of amazing aircraft outside, so you may hear kind of the airplanes kind of moving around, and also some other kind of ground equipment I think moving around when we were testing some stuff earlier. It's an incredible environment, so again, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I think let's begin at the beginning for you. So just tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of your story about where you kind of came from and where you are today.
Okay, so my name is Laura Laban. I am the CEO and co-founder of Infinite Flight. So Infinite Flight is an application that runs on iOS and Android. It's a flight simulator, obviously, and it got started in a sort of interesting way, I would say. This was when I was in school in 2004-ish. I was part of a game development laboratory at my school in France, engineering school, and we could replace some school projects with gaming projects, so game development projects. So we could learn how to make video games in school, and it was something officially supported by the school, so it was great. And I worked on the physics part of the game, so basically having crates in the app and being able to shoot them and stack them and blow them up and stuff like that. And there was a sample in the SDK, the software development kit that I was using for the physics, that had a little car sample where you could just drive around a blocky looking car, and the physics were kind of realistic for car physics. And there was an option when you flip the car on its back to put the wheels back on the ground, so you could just press a button. And if you press that button fast enough, the car would just start flying, kind of erratically, but flying. And this got me to thinking, like, what if I had a way to have three forces, two for wings and one in the back for the elevator, and made that vary based on the speed and the angle of attack? Would that make a plane fly? Turns out it actually does make a plane fly, and this is how the whole thing got started. So over time I worked on this, I made progress, I found models to have the actual 3D model of the plane, to tweak the physics and physics of the rudder, the propeller and all that. And I worked on this until 2004 when I moved to California. And I met a friend of mine who was interested in looking for a project, and we decided kind of joined forces because I figured this project wasn't really going anywhere unless I had someone with me working on this. And we decided to make it into a full-time, like a full flight sim product, which we shipped on Windows Phone because we had access to some developer phones at the time. So we shipped that version on Windows Phone first. It wasn't a great success because the platform was kind of rocky,
Sure.
but it was a good way for us to get our hands into the mobile development. And it was also an easier way to enter this market without being compared to bigger simulators like X-Plane and others. So this is how we kind of got started. And now we're on Android and iOS and having a lot of fun.
And that, I guess, is kind of how Infinite Flight was born in some degree?
Yeah, it was born. It used to be called Flight Simulator Project at the time when this was my little thing. And then we picked a name. And yeah, this is how it got started.
Wow, okay. So all the way from developing car physics for that little games lab stuff that you did back then, and here you are today, all those years later with a big successful kind of mobile application for flight simulator enthusiasts. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with what we've built, and the team's been growing and the community's been super enthusiastic about the project. So we're trying to, that's why we've met at Flight Sim Expo last year.
Yeah.
We're trying to go to more trade shows and expos to just get the word out about a different type of simulation that people are used to, which can be equally as fun.
I think that's something we noticed when we kind of met you guys at the previous two events, was just how many people were kind of at your stand checking out Infinite Flight. Because I think a lot of people attend the events that we're talking about, FS Expo and Cosford, are kind of thinking more about their desktop simulations from the core platforms that they kind of know and love, but then to see something on a mobile device that looks like really, really cool and is fun to play and has so much kind of content and features, that's quite a community orientated thing. So how have you kind of developed that community over time and fostered such a good, people come in to see you guys and use your products at those events?
It's been kind of organic. I'm not sure this was like a main focus at the beginning. I think what got that started was having a place for people to post things on, like post feature requests, and having a very active Facebook page. It's got a lot of people coming in and posting their ideas, their pictures, and sharing what they were doing. And what really was the catalyst of all this community was when we added the live mode, which is the multiplayer system. This allowed people to play together, plan flights, and share pictures and videos of all of them playing together. This was really the moment where it really exploded. Because when they were flying alone, it was just sharing their own flight. But now that everyone flies together, it takes another dimension.
And it's not just pilots that can get involved, is it, with Infinite Flight?
Right. We have you can also be a controller. So we have different server levels depending on how serious you want your experience to be. So we have the casual where everybody can do whatever they want. And we have the training server where you can also act as a controller. But then as a pilot, you know that the controllers may not be higher quality controllers. So you know your vectors are not going to be that great. That's the intermediate level.
Sure.
And then we have the expert server where the controllers are vetted by a team of people from our company, from inside the company, and moderators and ATC managers that are kind of testing people. And it's been pretty good. The experience is pretty good. You can have a relatively good quality ATC service from ground to ground on the other side.
Sure.
With passing by tower, departure and approach. You can ask for vectors for ILS, and this works really well.
And it's all done through
Yes.
the mobile app?
Yeah. So
Wow.
on the phone or a tablet, iPad.
So you could literally be anywhere as long as you've got like Wi-Fi or something, and you
Exactly.
could be interacting with someone,
Yes.
controlling.
Yeah.
Wow.
Even in the plane, we've tried. If you have in-flight Wi-Fi, it works.
Oh, I should have tried that on my flight over.
Yeah.
So
We don't use that much power, so not much bandwidth.
Right.
So it works just if you have the planes already downloaded, it works just fine.
I'll be trying that on my flight back home.
You should.
Definitely.
Let me know how it works.
I will. So I've used Infinite Flight quite a fair amount, even from at the trade shows and kind of in my own personal time as well. So
I think really, I spend a lot of time on my desktop simulators as well. And I think a lot of the community that we kind of target at the moment at fsel.it is more geared towards the desktop stuff. So in terms of Infinite Flight being a mobile kind of system and a flight simulation, how do you see yourselves compared to the likes of Prepared from Lockheed Martin or X-Plane 11 from Laminar Research?
I think we're obviously in the same spirit. We're a flight simulator, but we have it's a different use case, it's a different environment. We're not trying to compete directly with them. It's just more of a casual experience. So we may have in the future, but for now we don't have a system where you can start the APU and you use all the switches to start an engine.
Sure.
It's a little more casual. It's more for people that want to have a quick experience, just want to get into a flight, have fun, and they don't have necessarily the time to go through all the steps to get a flight going. So yeah, it's not really competing with them. We're just in the same environment but not competing.
I think you're right. I think that's why they can both coexist at the same time, but still offer that feeling of flight, but kind of a different level of it as such.
Right.
Because I do quite a lot of traveling, so it's also quite nice to kind of just think, oh, it'd be nice to kind of fly. So I can literally load up my phone and just enjoy and experience that world still. So thinking of the development process a little bit more then. So how many people currently work on Infinite Flight?
So we're about 10 to 12 people, depending on, it just varies sometimes. And it's about 5 developers, and we have 3 to 4 community oriented people, so community managers or handling social media or marketing. We have a bunch of artists as well working on the 3D models, the plates, and we all spread out around the world.
So how do you manage to create something as detailed and as complex as Infinite Flight, but with people kind of spread here, there, and everywhere? How does that work for you guys?
Well, we use a lot of Slack. Like Slack, it's an app that allows people to communicate. It's like a big chat room with different private chat sections and stuff like that. And this has been pretty good so far. We try to have all our people connected to that every time they're working, so we can reach out to them, or we'd ask questions. There's like some different topics, different sections of the Slack channels where you can talk about artists, you can talk about community stuff, and it's been working pretty well. It's always would rather be all in the same space, but we're in this new world now where people don't necessarily want to move, and there's always visa issues. So if you find somebody in another country, how do you make that work? So it's easier for us to kind of get people where they are and try to make it work than have them move to a different place. But it's been pretty good. We've had good luck with the people that we've had join the team so far.
So speaking of people you've had join the team then, so the whole idea behind Developer Month is really to find out a little bit more about the people behind the projects, to find out more about the people behind the development side of things, but also to try and maybe even inspire some people to kind of join companies or to develop their own products in the future. So how would someone go about potentially joining the Infinite Flight team in the future?
Well, the thing we tell people that ask us how to join the team is the best way to do it is to go on our forum. There's a section for development, and there's they can use something an API that we have set up. There's 2 different types of API. One is for the app itself. You can basically connect to the app and send commands. So gear up, gear down, set the flaps, set the autopilot values, move the cameras around, move even the axis of you could have like a virtual network joystick, and you can move the axis of all all the axes of that joystick around. So that's a good way to get into the actual real-time simulation part. And we also have a web API that's used for flight information, because in the multiplayer system, we publish this information on an API that people can access to get the flight plans of all the flights that are happening, the stats of all the pilots. So that's a different, for people who are more into web development, that's something they could also try. But this is the best way for us to notice someone, and this is how we've hired 2 people in the team who joined us because they worked on an API, and we could see their commitment in the long term, because we don't really believe in like one-time interviews, because like sometimes you could botch an interview just because you didn't sleep the day before, the night before,
right.
you know, or something happened and you're not feeling your best. It just feels wrong to deny someone an opportunity just because they didn't manage to make it work that one time, and they had one shot. This is more like a lazy way of hiring people, where we see what they can do over a long span on their own, and then at some point when we realize that, hey, you know, you could work with us, like we have a need for this, a position similar to what you're working on right now, would you like to work with us? And usually they say yes.
And I guess how that helps you is, before you kind of even have them join the team, you can kind of see how much passion and how much commitment they have to the project as well. So I guess that really helps you to make sure they're a right fit for the team, I guess.
Yeah, because there's an essential part of having of a person that works in our team is the self-driving. They don't have to be micromanaged. We don't like to micromanage people. It's basically, here's something we want to do, go ahead and do it. It doesn't really matter how you do it. We'd like to know exactly like some of the details, just to see if technically it's not going off the rails. But usually it's fine. If the people we've hired so far, they've been doing a good job, and they know the philosophy that we have behind, you know, all the optimizations that we're looking for in terms of performance, in terms of quality of the code. So it's been good so far.
So you bring up a good point about the optimization stuff. So Infinite Flight being a mobile-based application, I guess you kind of come up with quite a few challenges and roadblocks, especially when it comes to the different devices that you work on. What sort of the challenges you face as a mobile app developer?
So we faced, so there's multiple levels of issues we face being on mobile. The most obvious one is the fact that devices are lower powered compared to what you can have on a full PC, desktop PC at home. We have to work with processors that are probably like, it's less of an issue now, but back in a few years back, this was definitely an issue to have a full flight sim running on a mobile platform. So we had to spend a lot of time optimizing a lot of parts in the code, figuring out why some sections of the code take too long, and realizing like what can we optimize, where can we go, is there any new tricks that we can use, can we multi-thread this part of the process. So there's a lot of effort that was spent doing that. And at this point today, we know we still have some things to work on. So we don't really have today in the latest versions that we're going to ship, there's not really a piece that's really standing out in terms of performance. It's a lot of little things that are in need of optimization. So we're working towards more better data management. So when the computer has to run a piece of code, it doesn't have to shuffle memory around so much, but everything is optimized so the memory is just traversed like sequentially without having to like move things around too much.
Sure.
Yeah.
Mind blown. So obviously working on mobile, I guess that forces you guys to work as efficiently as possible to try and get around some of those constraints. Have you ever considered moving Infinite Flight to PC architecture to kind of open that audience up a little bit more?
Right, so we actually do run on PC. We do most of the development on PC. Mm-hmm. So all the features are done on the PC platform. And then when they're ready, we deploy them to the mobile platforms. The advantage of that is that it's easier for us to deploy on a PC. You can debug easily on a PC. But we don't really want to ship on PC because it's like all the issues we've had with Android times 2.
Right.
Because Android brings a lot of problems with device drivers, with different CPU and GPU configurations. We've had people come to us saying they're weird, Qualcomm chipset we've never heard of was not working, and we can't access that device because it's only sold in South Korea.
Right.
So sometimes there's no solutions for us. So we're trying to make things work on everything, and that's already taken a lot of our time. So maybe one day we'll go on PC, but it's not a priority at this point.
Sure. So I want to kind of go back a little bit and find out a little bit more about yourself and kind of how you how you got into aviation in the first place. So what story do you have to tell us about how you got there?
So there's no my father or my grandfather was a pilot story in my family. I'm sort of like a genetic mutation for aviation. So I discovered aviation through flight simulation when my brother came home one day with Flight Sim 5.1, I think.
Sure.
Where you took off from MIGs, and I think this was the first one that had some textures on the ground, but not much else. And he was never playing it, so I was the only one actually using the simulator. So I learned they had a big booklet, and I learned about viewer navigation and all the stuff that they had in that book. And then when I got my first computer in 97-ish, I installed FS.it and started making scenery packages. And there's one that I actually sold. It was in a box that was sold, I think, on simflight.com or other websites like that. Should I say this? Is it okay?
Yeah.
Simflight? Okay.
Yeah.
So it sold on some of those websites. It's called Polynesia 2000. And I think there was also Geneva 2000 made by Flight World. I think the company is not active anymore. But yeah, this allowed me to get my private pilot license. And what convinced me to get it was when before I sold those commercial packages, I was building small airports around my hometown. And this guy reached out to me to thank me for the work. And it was just distributed for free online as a freeware. And he's like, well, it's great you have done my airport. Would you like to, I'm flying out of this airport just south of Lyon. Do you want to fly one day? And so I ended up taking a flight with him. And I got the bug, the final one, like, okay, I got to do this. I got to start flying myself. It's just so cool. So with the help of the revenue that I got from the scenery packages, I managed to get my license. So first on a 172 for the initiation flight, and then on a 152, then DR400, Piper Cadet, and then got my license on this one. And then I moved to California. Then I flew on beat-up 152s in Palo Alto. Moved on to the Cessna 172 with the G1000. This was great fun. And then I met a friend who was also French, and he introduced me to an old veteran Navy pilot who flew out of Oakland. His name was Lou Fields. And he basically told me, you got to try tail draggers, because tricycle gears are fun, but it's just for normal pilots. You could be a tail dragger pilot. And I always heard the stories about tail dragger aircraft can be in accidents, and like you can just flip them around and you can touch the wings, and but he told me, like, just try it one time. So I did it one time, and I tried with this Navy veteran who had an Aerocat 7DC 1946 airplane with no electrical power, just like hand prop it to start it, and I was just convinced. I was like, this is what I want to do. This is much more fun than a 172. It's like real flying.
Yeah.
So this is when I got my tailwheel endorsement, and basically I've been flying tailwheel planes ever since.
So we actually took one up earlier today.
Yeah.
So what can you tell us about that aircraft?
So it's a 2004 Citabria 7 GCAA. It's a 160 horsepower engine on it, and it's for light aerobatics. You can do a few things, but not inverted flight. I don't have inverted fuel or oil, but it's a fun plane to just fly around, go to fun places. You can land on small fields, has a very low stall speed. When I flew it across the country when I moved to New York, it took us a long time to go across.
Yeah, I bet.
But it was fun. It was a fun experience. Low and slow.
They're an actual terminal. But I could smell the diesel.
But it was fun. It's a fun airplane for just like fun flying, not to go places, but just to fly around on the weekend.
He doesn't want to share
with
his tax
the
returns.
windows open and
Just enjoy the
because
view.
people
Exactly.
would see what he did.
Yeah.
There's
Because we
this
saw
thing,
some
there's
really cool
another
views.
house over
You take it
there,
from here,
like a
you saw
big
the frozen
castle-looking
lakes,
house.
the golf courses.
And
Yeah, it was,
the,
you have such good like panoramic scenes of on the aircraft, right?
Yeah, the tandem seat is actually the good thing, because if you're in a 172, you can really only see one side because the other side is blocked by the other seat.
Yeah.
This one is just basically you're by yourself and you have both sides. So it's,
Yeah, it doesn't matter where you look, left,
Yeah.
right, up, down, because you
Yeah.
even had like a
yeah,
window on the top as
Yeah.
well. So yeah, you got some really awesome stuff.
yeah, it's a cool plane. I like flying it.
I can tell. So I think really this is one of the final questions I'd like to ask you, and I think this really will help maybe to other people to maybe even encourage developing. But if you were to go back in time before all of this kind of really started, what advice would you have given yourself?
I would probably tell myself to start earlier, because I was kind of holding myself back by fear of being judged because the simulator was not in a state that was comparable to other simulators. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. As long as you have some features that work and that are usable and they're polished and fun, it works just as much for users. So it will be starting earlier.
Starting earlier.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of things we've kind of picked up on, and that's you guys are really community driven. So you spend a lot of time and focus on making sure that you listen to their feedback, you engage with them and try and get them involved in like the development of the simulator and stuff, and that it doesn't matter kind of anything. If you want to develop something, then just give it a shot, right?
Yeah, pretty much. And there's I would say if you want to develop something that you want to make a living out of it, it has to be something you like. Because for me, I never really felt that it was a grind to work on this. It's a hustle, because there's sometimes things that when they're not working, especially on computers and programming, and you only have yourself to blame when there's a bug, and sometimes it's really hard to find what happened, and sometimes, well, not really always yourself, but sometimes there's driver issues and there's not much online that you can find. Sometimes you have to really dig really far away to find solutions to problems, and it can be discouraging.
Yeah.
So you have to have this little impulse, this drive to want to keep it going and not be discouraged too much. But it's like any project, it's a roller coaster of emotions, and there's times where you want to let go, but as long as your mind keeps going back to it by default, it's probably the thing that you should do. This is what happened to me. I tried to work on different things, but I always came back to this project because that's the thing that I guess I was meant to do, like the perfect combination of something that works and I'm interested in and that has a potential of working. So.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for spending the time with us and to just kind of share your experience and your stories. So just for everyone else who's not sure, where can people find out a little bit more about Infinite Flight and the community?
So you can find about Infinite Flight on our website, infiniteflight.com. We have a lot of things that are posted on social media. So on Twitter and Instagram, it's @InfiniteFlight, just straight word. We have a community forum, so it's community.infiniteflight.com, and that's where pretty much everything happens. Like all the events are posted, we post announcements for new things, new features, picture previews for things, we post them. We usually cross-post on all the platforms, but the forum is really where things are happening, where all the events, all the virtual airlines are hanging out and creating their spaces and their routes. So best place to go. And if you want to get the app, it's on the App Store and Android Store. Just search for Infinite Flight in the search bar, and you should get,
Find it.
Yeah, exactly. You should find it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again.
Right.
And thank you to you guys as well for tuning in. Stay tuned. We'll have plenty more Developer Month videos and content on its way. But be sure to check out Infinite Flight, because these guys do an incredible job at making a very cool flight simulator for mobile devices. Thank you again, and speak to you soon.